I think everybody deep down thinks if they look deeply into their own heart, they're going to find some horrible truth, something is wrong with me, or I'm bad deep down. But it's not true. What you discover is you're good. You're really good. And that being alive is good.
It is such a pleasure to connect with you today. You've been teaching meditation since 1979. We even have a mutual Sangha friend, so that's really special to be together here. And with everything that you're about to share with us, it'll likely be backed in teachings of the Dharma. And so I was wondering if you could share with our community a little bit about those teachings.
So those teachings of the Dharma, we call it the Dharma. The Dharma just means the way things are, but it refers to both the laws of nature. When I teach kids, I always say, it's like trees grow up, they don't grow down. The waves roll in, they don't roll out. Those kinds of, gravity, the laws of nature, the way things are that way. But the Dharma also refers to the set of teachings about mindfulness and compassion that derive from Buddhist psychology and philosophy and meditation practice. Those teachings are designed to make happiness more accessible to us and also to help us steady our hearts when things get bumpy or really rough. The teachings of mindfulness, of being present, of learning how to begin to observe your thinking. That's the hugest thing, I think, is to learn that we don't have to always believe our thoughts, but we can actually watch them and be present and look at them. And maybe the whole teaching of the Dharma is learning to see where we get stuck on things, where we get identified with some self-image, and where we are free, and to begin to appreciate those spaces between where we're caught, where it might just be, there might be some ease and some well-being, and to really savor those moments and learn how to make more of our life full of those kinds of moments.
How did you find the Dharma and Buddha teachings? And is there anything in particular connected to the senses that you'd be able to share with our community throughout what you've learned?
I'm writing a whole book about this, actually, about how I met the Dharma. And it really came from some experiences that I had when I gave birth. I was alone for a lot of the time that I was in labor. I was in a hospital, but I was alone and I knew nothing about childbirth. So it was a difficult experience and I was scared and very uncomfortable. And I just had this sort of opening where everything fell away, the hospital room, everything. I can't even put it exactly into words, but it was like just seeing how each one of us is part of a chain of being, that this is how everybody is born. This is how everybody passes away, just this cascading generations, just the infinity of the past, the infinity of the future, and just being poised on this pinnacle of nowness. And so I had that experience, but you know what? I never thought much about it. I thought, this is just what happens to people when they give birth. It was no big deal. I was very fortunate in a way that I wasn't part of a spiritual community where we would have made something of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It was just like, okay, this is part of being in labor. And it was, anyway. And then a couple years later, I had another one of those experiences where my daughter came down with the worst, most virulent form of spinal meningitis, and she was actually dying in the hospital. She was in a coma for over a week. I mean, of course, that's its own whole traumatic experience, but thank God she emerged, but she was in the hospital for 2.5 months, so it was very long. And at one point, there would be different points where she would code and the doctors would come running. And I remember this one point when there were like 6 doctors and nurses and little tiny body, right? 2 years old. And They were all working because her veins would collapse. And I was actually present watching this. I had another one of those experiences, where I just saw these people working to save this little being. I just saw God. It was like God is not somewhere else, up in the sky or in a church or a synagogue or a mosque God is in the activity of compassion right here. And that time I didn't forget it. That time I was like, somebody must know about this. I want to find out.
That's so incredible and such a wild way to find the teachings and kind of for your life to go into the direction that it has.
But I'm really happy, AJ, that I had these experiences before I heard teachings or began to meditate. And here's why. Because I knew this was part of me and who I am. And it took me years to integrate all that. Don't get me wrong. I didn't know it right away. But I saw, this didn't come from Buddhism or Christianity, or it didn't come from any ism. It came from life, from just being alive.
We have a community that's going to be hearing this. And for many of them, they have not practiced meditation, or they're not, they're completely new to this conversation. So from kind of these experiences that you've gone through, like what steps did you take to honor the emotions that came up for you at that time in order to get to where you are in your process with all of that today?
I'm going to be honest. I did not come to where I am today just through meditation practice. I also had psychotherapy and became a psychotherapist. And so I really believe in the powerful synergy of those two healing modalities. I had to have a lot of therapy to learn how to be in touch with my emotions. Haley, you asked about the senses. And one of the things that happens when we practice being present and alert and aware, the senses get more acute. It's sort of like you can smell more, or you just notice more. You open your senses and feel more alive. I had to learn a lot of that in therapy as well as in meditation. I was really out of touch with my feelings. I didn't know when I was angry. I would just do angry things and had to learn, really. I can say things that are very common sense, but actually hard to do. One of the things I learned is to let the feelings that I was having, or that I am having at any given time, have their way with me a little bit. Just let myself feel them fully. It can be scary because it feels like maybe I'll drown in those feelings, or I'll just be completely overwhelmed, or I'll lose control, or all kinds of fears. But the fears are so much worse than the actuality, because when I can let myself just feel grief, I'm sad. Tears come. Sadness is present. I'm sad, but there's almost a sweetness and simplicity to it. Of course I'm sad. Whereas grief that I'm avoiding will come out in kind of crooked ways, like, oh, if only I had told him I loved him, if only I hadn't gone away when blah, blah, if only, regrets, right? That's a big one. Anger. Why did they leave me? How dare they leave me? They weren't supposed to. That wasn't part of the plan. Or even if it's a natural old age, still, how am I going to live without you? All these questions. Or sometimes it can be turned on yourself and you feel even self-hatred. When you're really grieving, all the meaning of usual things that bring you comfort kind of the meanings drain out of life. And so I recommend having some refuge, whether you're a meditator or not, maybe just a certain space in your house that you like, a little corner. I don't know if you have a yard or a garden or, but just some little place where you feel safe and at ease and that you like it. And in that place to maybe put, some photos, flower, whatever makes you feel that it's a special space where you can go and feel your feelings fully.
These feelings that you're talking about, like you said, that it can feel like you're drowning. Our community has a wide range of demographic, and some of the individuals in our community are quite young, and they're feeling big feelings or a big loss for the first time, these feelings of grief are brand new, what would you say to these community members, this younger demographic who's experiencing these feelings for the first time? And what are some action steps that they can do to hold themselves in those moments?
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to you. And you're just in the grip of a really big feeling. Whatever might soothe you a little bit, whether it's taking some deep breaths, whether it's just giving yourself, just holding yourself sometimes. If you have a pet, to hold your pet, whatever brings you comfort is important. It's also really good for you to know that this is what it's like to be a human being who feels grief. And because it can make you feel very isolated and alone. Everyone around you is okay and having fun, and you're in the grip of the most terrible feelings you've ever had in your life, right? Sometimes it can be helpful to realize, oh, this is what it's like to be a human being who is sad. And then you feel, instead of all alone, you're connected to every human being in the world who's ever felt sad.
Wow. Your words are so powerful.
You've overcome so much since we've met each other in the past 6 to 12 months. You have also navigated so much within yourself. I'm curious about your healing process, and what would you share to someone who is looking to explore their healing journey, or perhaps doesn't even know that healing is available for them?
I'm going to just make a pitch I did it before, for both counseling and therapy. What it really means is letting another person help you. And of course, we have friends who can help, and we have family who can help, hopefully, or our chosen family. But sometimes you want somebody who actually has some expertise, who has some experience, who can really guide you and help you learn. Really, I believe anything can be healed. For me, meditation has been a huge help and support, because it's been a chance to tune into myself and see what I'm feeling, get to know my inner life, and, develop more than a handshaking acquaintance with my inner world. The more you get to know yourself, the less you're afraid of things. I think everybody deep down thinks if they look deeply into their own heart, they're going to find some horrible truth, something is wrong with me, or I'm bad deep down. But it's not true. What you discover is you're good. You're really good. Being alive is good. But we can't discover and heal all on our own. You can't do it all by yourself. Well, maybe a few extraordinary people can, but I certainly couldn't. I think that we need each other. And we also need teachers and guides and therapists and just helpers. And that's something I'd love to see people feel that they can do and give to themselves without any stigma or any shame or any sense of something wrong with me. You're just a human being. And this is what it's like to be human beings. We need each other, and we can heal with support and care and love.
You're someone that has, at this point, decades of meditation experience. If someone hasn't been able to bring themselves to meditate, do you have a simple prompt or suggestion that folks can sit with?
Yes. If you are, afraid of what lies beneath, and you don't know, and it's scary, and this is why meditation is done in groups. It can be grim and lonely and depressing to sort of try to face yourself all by yourself. And so my prompt would be, find some friends or a sitting group. We call them sitting groups, or a meditation group, and don't try to do it all by yourself. Honestly, I would go every single week. I'd get a babysitter. I was a single mom at that time. I would go to the Zen center where I was practicing with my Korean Zen teacher. And fun fact, the 13-year-old who babysat for my daughter at that time, turned out she became a meditator. We lost touch, of course. She came to a retreat I taught. She was a young mother at that point, and she said, I want you to know I'm here because of you. I would go and babysit for you, and I would look at your meditation cushion and your little altar you had, and I would stare at it, and I would think, this is what makes her happy. This is why she's so happy. I don't think you can do it all by yourself, and you don't have to. Because now with the internet, I mean, this is one of the blessings of the internet. Oh, you have self-care for everyone. You have tremendous resources online so that even if you're in the most remote place, as long as you have some connectivity, you can have company.
It's so simple and so powerful. And like you said, with the internet nowadays, I know with Haley and I, we sit in community digitally.
Right.
And like you said, it's not difficult to do a quick Google search and kind of find either a place locally, physically to you, or a place that you can do it digitally. We've already covered so much and some hard-hitting topics for many people. We wanted to kind of pivot, and as we start to close, do a bit of a fun, quick-hitting self-care questions,
Yes.
so that our community can get to learn even more from you. I know this isn't very zen, but we'd like to do a speed round if you're up for it.
Sure. One of the things that comes out of meditation is lots of joy. I mean, we're talking about meditation as a way to cope with grief and loss. It's a joyful thing.
It really is. David describes it as you bring your mind to a playground and you let it play, and you just sit your body on the cushion and let your mind have a good time at its playground. And I really love that analogy.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to use that, David.
All right. I am curious what book you're reading right now.
Being who I am, I read several books at a time. I don't read just one book. I'm actually reading a kid's book right now called Blood in the River. I can show it to you if you want. That was recommended by my grandson. I just finished reading The Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard. I love trees.
I am curious, what is your favorite morning self-care activity?
Snuggling in bed, not having to jump out of bed.
And
no one's ever asked me that, and I've never said that.
I love it. And then just to be the opposite of AJ, I'm curious, what's your favorite evening self-care activity?
If I'm by myself, it's to just go for a walk in the night. I live on a little walk street with no street lights. In LA, it's very hard to experience night, dark. There's so much illumination in the city, and I really crave that. So I love to do that.
What is your favorite form of physical self-care? Which I guess, we just covered the walking, but is there...
Oh, swimming. So open water swimming. And if the surf is too big, boogie boarding. But I want to make it clear, at my age, and I'm 77, I boogie board in front of the waves. I do not get on top of them, because if they're so big that I can't get out to swim, they're too big for me to get on top of.
One last speed round question is, for self-care, would you prefer writing in your journal or going to therapy?
At this stage of my life, I would prefer writing in my journal. When I was younger, I would have much preferred talking to somebody.
Thank you so much for all those, Trudy. That was so much fun. Thank you for playing along. We do have one last question that we like to ask our guests here. What is one thing you would do right now if you knew you couldn't fail at it?
Wow, I would get my book published, because my whole PR thrust right now is, yes, please buy this book, but don't read it, because I'm so scared that I'll fail.
Well, I don't think you will. And now that we've spoken in the universe, it will be published, and I think it's going to really impact a lot of people's lives, as just you in general as a human do on a daily basis. That's why we're so grateful to you for taking this time today to really sit with us and share slivers of your wisdom and your learnings.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I've never even met you in person, but I already love you. And all of you listeners too, they are wonderful. You know this. And I hope that some of what's been said today that will be useful for you, that you can take it into your own life and just experiment, play around with these things. It can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.